Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Join you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for joining me for what is the last day of my little break away. In fact, it's not even the last kind of day because I'm going to be leaving our little kind of cottagey, villa-y thing in about, well, I suppose pretty soon after we finish today's show. But thank you for sticking with me. Apologies for my blurry face throughout the last few days, sorry that it's not been obviously clear. It's probably been better if I just throw myself onto this slightly smaller screen with the with the slides up in place of that. But thank you so much for sticking with me. I hope you've appreciated the fact that we've obviously started doing what we've done with these shows whilst I've been away as well, and I hope that you've enjoyed that. So thank you so much. Very much appreciate all of that you've done throughout the course of these last few days, showing support to the channel. So please do continue to do so by dropping a like, subscribing, all of that lovely YouTube stuff. But thank you everyone joining us live in the chat box, of course, as well. Good morning to Martin, to MRM, to Jimbo, to Jalali. We've got Peter Renner, we've got Maximius, Pika Hu, Glenn, Stevie, Tom, Dylan, we've got Damien, Grantley Poos, Dave, Conde, Steve, Arsenal Adventure, Rowan, Phil, and plenty more of you guys as well. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's very much appreciated. So let's, without further ado, crack on with today's stories. Our first story of the day is, of course, to celebrate the success of Arsenal beating Aston Villa yesterday in what was a brilliant victory in the end. Yes, there's frustrations. Yes, there's still question marks about what Arsenal are doing this season under Jonas Eidevall and the lack of kind of cutting edge. But I suppose with the return of Beth Mead, who came on and obviously had a massive influence on the game. But Arsenal were 1-0 down going into injury time beyond the 90th minute. And thankfully, Kate McCabe and Alessia Russo turning up with two massive goals to give Arsenal a dramatic late victory. If there's one thing that Arsenal do, it is score late, and it is continue to fight until the absolute bitter end. And what an important victory this is. Had we have not won this game, had we have lost this game, the table would have been looking very bleak. And considering that Jonas Eidevall has only just signed a brand new contract with the club, question marks would have certainly been raised. So certainly very happy to see not only Beth Mead back, but obviously 3 points on the score sheet. And hopefully this can be a bit of a turning point for us. Amber Lee says, can Katie McCabe ever score a boring goal? And the answer to that, and I'm quite thankful for this, is no. Norway, however, less so positive for Arsenal's women's team, but less positive for Norway is that, and Martin Odegaard in particular, is they are in real danger of not qualifying for the European Championships next year. They lost 1-0 against Spain, which meant that Scotland and Spain from their group will progress through to the tournament next summer. Very frustrating for Odegaard, of course, who started the game with Erling Haaland. Neither player is yet to play at a major international tournament, which is a massive blow to Odegaard. His confidence hopefully can be strong enough that he can continue to be headstrong in this moment, but it will be a big blow to his confidence ahead of what is obviously going to be a really important run of games for Arsenal, and hopefully he can separate that from what this is. But they can still qualify, but it is going to take a monumental effort, and it is going to take their ultimately going to take the Nations League and what they've still got to do in that group. I believe that has the likes of Serbia and Sweden in that group as well. They're going to have to try and come through and qualify for the Nations League in that way. So we'll have to wait and see if indeed Norway can do that. But it's not looking particularly great for Odegaard in what is a big blow to him and his country. Partey was substituted early in the game that Ghana played over the course of this international break. However, Chris Hughton did come out after the game to explain that Partey was a planned substitution at half-time, which is obviously a very good thing for Arsenal and a good thing for Ghana, because obviously we want him to be fit, we want him to be ready and available for us, and the fact that it was a planned substitution, that it was always going to come off in that moment is obviously a good thing for us. We want to make sure that he's being watched carefully and maintaining his fitness. But it wasn't. People were like, "Well, why does he need to play in a friendly?" Well, because he's been out for so long. The only minutes he's played since returning from injury was that cameo performance in which he had a really big influence on the game against Manchester City. And we need to get some minutes into his legs. We need to make sure that we need to ensure that we obviously build up that fitness. So it's not actually too bad that he's playing these international games, because that will help him to build up that match fitness and get him ready for returning to Arsenal. So for those that are moaning that he's actually playing, I'd say calm for a second, because actually there is quite a lot of benefits to him being involved in those games for Ghana. And finally, our headline story of the day is that we spoke yesterday about the fact that Edu had travelled all the way to Brazil to see Fluminense and to meet with the club and talk their strategies and training and their facilities and things like this. And, you know, building up relationships with clubs in South America is something that's been on Arsenal's agenda for quite some time. But perhaps there's been some suggestions that that trip was linked to Arsenal's interest in defensive midfielder Andre, who is a player that I can't say that I'm too familiar with, but I do know that plenty of our listeners who are far more versed in more countries and players than I am, have been leaving comments about different players and information on different. So I'm sure there'll be some information from those guys. But just from looking specifically at kind of his profile on Transfermarkt, he's a 22-year-old Brazilian defensive midfielder. He's already got a couple of caps for the senior Brazilian national side as well, which is obviously really positive. He played in an international friendly most recently against Senegal as well, and he played against Venezuela as well. Only a few days ago, he came on in the second half in that 1-1 draw that Gabriel Magalhaes scored in, 11-minute cameo in that. But he's played plenty of games, as obviously the Copa Libertadores continues for Fluminense. They're in the final of that competition, and Andre is expected to play and get involved in that. I told you yesterday about Mateus Martinelli. I've been told by one of our listeners that actually he's kind of fallen down the pecking order at Fluminense, and Andre is one of those players that is now more so at the forefront of that team. So maybe he's one to watch out for. Maybe that link is real. We'll have to wait and see, I guess. But that's everything from the last 24 hours. So let's go to part 2 and your questions right after this. Right, let's jump into the chat box for about 10 minutes or so and tackle some of your questions before we wrap things up. The process says, a selfish question, Tom, but would it be such a bad thing for Arsenal if Norway missed out on the Euros? Well, I guess you can kind of look at it that way. When it comes to international tournaments, I think the involvement of our players can often be a really positive thing for their confidence, for their momentum. But yes, there is obvious benefits to Odegaard not being involved in the European Championships. We obviously quite often are thankful when players that are involved in kind of mid-season international tournaments like the Asia Cup or the African Cup of Nations return early. So I suppose you do have to apply the same consistent context to those European and global tournaments as well. So if Odegaard is indeed to miss that game, which I still think is a big blow to him, and if he is to miss the tournament, that would be a blow, then obviously there are benefits to seeing him not involved in that tournament. Top Gun says, I thought Odegaard was injured. Oh no, goodness me. It's no, certainly was injured if that was indeed the case, but he is just simply missing and could be missing the European Championships, which is certainly a blow to him. Alicia says, hey, Tom, first time I can catch the show thanks to a day off. I'm from Lawrence and a massive fan of Arsenal. Thanks for your podcast and entertaining me at work every single day. You're absolutely welcome. And I'm still hoping to get in touch with Lawrence. I've got a story still to tell you guys about what happened in Lawrence. It will be coming at some point as soon as I've got all the information back about some chaos. Daniel says, why is it that African players are treated differently when treated on international duty? No one followed Odegaard in the same way. I don't actually know, Daniel, whether or not there was a member of staff from Arsenal that was following Odegaard. I assume, Daniel, what you're referring to is the fact that there has been one of the Arsenal staff members has travelled with Partey to the Ghanaian national team. One of the big reasons as to why is that Odegaard doesn't have too many injury kind of issues specifically. Partey obviously has been monitored for his injury for quite some time, and because of those repetitive injury problems that Partey has had, they are monitoring them. I don't think it's specifically that African players are treated differently when on international break. The following of Odegaard's, I don't know if he was followed by one of the Arsenal staff members, but when it comes to Partey specifically, it's because of those continuous injury issues that he has faced. So the club want to make sure that he's being, they've got a specific kind of plan when he goes away, and that usually they negotiate and discuss with the Ghanaian national side as well. Alicia, do I need any contacts for Lons? I'm already in contact with Lons, so don't worry, Alicia, but thank you for that. It's very kind of you. Rich says, Tom, I've seen a few links saying Charlie Patino no longer wants to leave, but to try and break into the Arsenal first team after returning from loan. Do you have any comment on that? I think there were some quotes, were there not, from Charlie Patino, and was speaking specifically kind of about William Saliba. Progress in deals since the people read he didn't say that that Arsenal. We go. So Saliba is a different back being able on loan, make an income quality at Arsenal, who are of course. So he's not specifically saying he wants to come back, but he is kind of. Oh, hold on. Sorted. Okay. I'll read those quotes again. Basically, when it comes to Patino saying that Saliba was specifically kind of a different type of player, and that it's inspiring for a player that has gone on loan to come back to Arsenal and specifically succeed after going on loan, which he sees as an inspiration for a massive club like Arsenal, which I do think is obviously an indication that he's seeing this loan as maybe a benefit for him. But there's been no indication that Patino will specifically be kind of coming back to Arsenal and in any capacity succeeding into the first team. It's just a really good interview, a really good kind of quote from him specifically that doesn't rule out anything. The reports that initially came from David Ornstein suggesting that he wanted, that there was an openness from him to leave on a permanent deal. I certainly did my own digging on that story in the summer and got some information from somebody very close to Charlie Patino that certainly it was a case of timing, that things just hadn't worked out very well for the player, and that we'd signed Declan Rice and Jorginho had come in January, and Partey was still in the team and wasn't going anywhere, and we still had El Neni at the club and he had got a brand new contract. So because of timing and the situation with the team, it wasn't working out for Patino. So hopefully now things will change for him, maybe, but I'm still very skeptical whether or not there is a future for Charlie Patino at Arsenal. Apologies for the slight network issue. It's a combination of things here, but we'll be wrapping things up soon. Let's go to let's scroll up a little bit more. Rob says, is there a story around why Gabriel Magalhaes didn't play at the start of the season? There was talk of Saudi Arabia, but I heard there might be something that went on. Rob, I spoke to somebody at Arsenal and was told that it was purely tactical. Now, you can take that in any way you want. Arsenal might have their own reasons for saying that it was that, but I'm giving you the line direct from Arsenal, is that we were told that it was specifically tactical why Gabriel was not left out, was left out of the team. So that's all I can tell you from the side of the people at Arsenal. It was a tactical decision, and that Partey playing at right back played a mold in it. Yes, there was links to Saudi Arabia. No, I don't know whether or not that it materialised into anything more than just interest, if there was talks or anything like that, if there was approaches made to the player or his agent, I don't know. But from an Arsenal perspective, the reason why he was left out, we are told, is purely for tactical reasons. Rich says, I'm curious, Tom, you just listed defensive midfielders as one standing in Patino's way. Does that mean he's settling into a 6/8 role? I did obviously mention the likes of Rice. He can play in multiple midfield positions. It can be as an attacking midfielder. It can be as a number 8. It could be as number 6. He's still very versatile in that central midfield position. I think that the fact that Arsenal brought in Declan Rice, I've obviously brought in, I've still got Smith Rowe, I've still got Vieira, I've got Odegaard. I think there's so many players in all of those midfield roles that block that pathway to Patino. So it's unlikely that we'll see anything change for him. The opportunity, obviously, he's an area as well. So that's and that says Tom's Benjamin Sisko, which Arsenal. Honestly, up more and waiting to a better indication around who they are as players. I've not seen enough for me of Jimenez. I've seen little clips of him, but hopefully it improves. We're going to wrap things up there because clearly technology is not helping me this morning. I'm hoping that it's going to get fixed very soon, but it's very frustrating. But thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Do drop a like on the video and usual stuff. And thank you ever so much for tuning in. I will see you again very soon. And as always,